Hi, everybody. This is Leah Granger, and you're watching Curtain Call, a weekly interview series with powerful women in the arts. It's co hosted by myself and Tamar Alana, and it is presented by FabCollab, a amazing arts organization based in Toronto, presenting artists and organizing events and all kinds of good stuff. Today on the program, we have a very special guest. She's a dear old friend of mine. We go all the way, I think this is the first guest to go all the way back to teenagehood for me. She's a fabulous actor, performer, performance artist. She's been based, we're doing a month, actually, I should mention, we're going to do a month of interviews with artists from living and working outside of Canada. So it's International Month. Yes, and so this performer, hey everybody, is a very talented actor, performer, performance artist. I've known them since we were 15 or 16. It's Nicola Gorham, who was at Kitsilano High with me. And she'll be joining us in just a moment. Hi, Makeda. Hi, Dave. Hi, Jessica, Tamar. So nice to see so many of you here. And while we're waiting for her, I'm just going to talk about a couple of other things we have coming up at Fab Collab. We've got La Cueva, a flamenco event, a live sort of improvised flamenco show every month. The first Sunday of every month. Thank you, Tamar, for the comment on the lighting. So it's a window. I always do it in front of a window. It's a live flamenco event. Oh, there she is. At Basement 254 in Toronto, first Sunday of every month. We also have a show coming up on July 6th with Lara Wong, a previous guest on Curtain Call, and an incredible flautist. And she'll be performing with Morena Son, an incredible Cuban band. So that's July 6th at Lula Lounge. Aaron, Aaron, you don't have to join. Hello.
Hello.
Oh man, this is so fun. I get to see
How
your
are
face.
you? I know, you too. Hi.
Hi, I'm great. Are we seeing you in your apartment?
This is my
Your home?
apartment. Yeah, this
This
is
is your
my
beautiful blue wall.
yeah, painted especially for things like this and self-tapes and stuff.
Self-tapes. I was going to say
Yeah.
the ubiquitous self-tape. Was
Oh
that even
yeah.
a thing before COVID?
A little bit, I think, but well, I know, but not like as much as it is now. It's like crazy.
That's it.
I too am in front of a window. I saw you say that, so it's
It's
the
the way to
best.
go. It's way better than the ring light.
Yeah, see, no rings in my eyes.
So Nicola, can you
Yeah,
tell me? So I was already just like bragging about how we knew each other from high school.
yeah,
We go way back to like the beginning.
yeah.
Um, we actually sat next to each other because my name is Granger, you're Gorham. So
hmm
we sat next to each other at grad. That's like a strong memory for me. Is sitting next to you. You had like you put together
Oh
quite an
my
outfit.
God.
You had
Yes.
you had made bracelets out of like duct tape rings,
Yeah.
and you had a big, I'm pretty sure a big red necklace and just like a
hmm
black t-shirt, black pants. Am I
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I was totally doing it, except the duct tape was just like the duct tape like roll. It wasn't even that I'd made. No, it was just like it was on the roll, just like put on. And I was so skinny then that it actually like was around here.
It was like a
Right around
cuff.
there. Yeah, it was just like I don't know. I don't know what I was doing. Some kind of raver
I
fantasy.
know. I thought it was pretty good. I was like, yeah.
Thanks.
Beat your own drum.
hmm Well,
Um,
yeah, I was always trying to do something.
well, okay, so let's talk a little bit about Because I was very impressed that very shortly after high school, you took off to the Big Apple. But I think before that, you went to Vancouver Film School. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was planning to take a year off and then go to theater school. And then I was so lucky to get a scholarship to the Vancouver Film School. And, I was kind of like, oh, I didn't know what it was going to be all about, but it really was amazing. And
Oh,
I
good.
yeah, but what was funny was that I remember our principal at the time was, so we had graduation, I got this scholarship, I got another scholarship, and the principal came in as my best friend, like we were in a science room somewhere. My best friend is studying for like provincials, yeah,
Yeah.
like finals, and I was like, so our principal comes in and she goes, "Oh, so do you think you deserved those scholarships?" And I was like, I guess so. I'm like, "Are you going to take them away from me?" She goes, "No, we just like our scholarship students to actually pass some classes." And I was like, "What?" So here we are, 20 years later, still scarred and still using it as material, I guess. But and so,
Wow, rude.
it's a cautionary tale to high school students to not listen to authority.
Totally. That's crazy though. You're like, well, I guess I'm not going to be like doing a lot of math or like chemistry in my
Yeah,
career.
right,
Is that
right.
okay?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how it is now, but like, you know, like for young people at that time, they were only kind of saying that there was like one path, like you had to do this, this, and this. And I mean, I get it. High school is supposed to be like that, but I'm just like, what? No. So,
So how did you end up in New York? Like, how
so
did that come out of the Vancouver Film School experience? How long
yeah,
was the program, by the way, at
uh,
Vancouver?
3 years. Oh, in at the Vancouver Film School, it was a year, but it was
Okay.
12 months straight,
Wow,
9 to 6 every weekday. So it was
that's
pretty
intense.
intense. Yeah, but it was really great. Um, and then I sort of took a year off then, and then I was like, I really wanted to go to the National Theatre School in Canada. My New York wasn't really on my radar because of like being Canadian, and I was like, I love New York, but it wasn't like considered, I wasn't considering it as like a possibility for a place to live. Um, my best friend already had lived here for, I guess, a year or two at that time, and so and then yeah, I just like auditioned because they were having auditions in Vancouver
Oh, wow.
randomly. Yeah, and so I was like, oh, okay, sure, I'll audition, and then that's where I got in. So, and I didn't get into the National Theatre School, but it's
But you
okay.
did get into the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
I sure did. Yeah, so that was great. And it was super magical, and then I
Yeah,
just moved here.
because isn't it funny? Like, imagine how your life would be if if that hadn't happened, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think about that all the time about a lot of things, like I don't know. I'd probably be in Toronto or something, but which isn't bad, but like
Well, I
I
think
it
about
just
it
would have been
because
different.
I did like this like little journalism program, not journalism, it was like magazine publishing at Cap College for
Mm,
like 2 months, and then I had
yeah.
to get an internship and applied at all the magazines in Vancouver, and I didn't get any of them. And then the
Uh-huh.
only one that accepted me was the Walrus in Toronto, which is
Uh-huh.
like to me the best magazine in Canada. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, okay, see ya. And
Yeah.
then that's like how I ended up here, and I never. It's been like 12 years or something.
Yeah.
14.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean
yeah,
it's
and
like
I'm
you
like,
never
it wouldn't,
know.
I'd probably be in Vancouver,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you never know where things are going to take you and like what, just what life is going to. I mean, it's like, I feel like maybe we're at an age now where we can look back and see like, oh, that did that, did that, did that, did
Mhm.
that. And like, it was not really what I planned, but it kind of feels like it. And, it's, I don't know, it's nice to
I mean,
sort
it
of
seems
make
like you're
some
in the
sense of
right
it.
place now. I
Yeah.
feel that way too. So tell me about what the experience was like, because we talked, yeah, like at when you were getting this education
Mm.
that you were like so excited about. What was that experience like moving to New York and being in school there?
Yeah, so on one hand, it was so amazing. It was like the entire world opened up for me. I was doing things that I like had dreamed about, had dreamt about, and sort of like, I guess like, a really amazing part of New York was opened up to me in a certain way, but like at the same time, it was a little bit weird because, okay, so yeah, there was like, this is in 2001, and it was really different. The film and television world, and really the world in general, was super different. And so I found that a lot of my education um, at the academy was, and I hear this from people who went elsewhere too, like that it was really, they weren't exactly fostering our unique energies. So there was a lot of like, training that was sort of gearing us towards being like more straight acting, really. And
Mhm.
so, it was like I would always have these like end of term um, like meetings with the like head of the school, and it would always be like, well, you're just not, you're not strong enough. You like your like you have to work on your body, you have to work on your voice, and of course, I was like, well, I'm in theater school and a third of my education is voice work, so okay, I'm going to do it. But
Yeah.
looking back, it was actually like relatively quite stifling, but they weren't, it's complicated because they weren't totally wrong. I then got out into the world and my agents were saying the same things, and it was just kind of like, that's just was the way it was. So you could
Yeah.
either be like, this is wrong, and then
Or like it's
not.
like, well, there's no roles for somebody like you, kind of.
Yeah, exactly,
So
that
they're like, "So please be like these things that we are casting.
totally, exactly. And it
Yeah.
was it was just totally like, there weren't, I mean, forget about like trans, or like there wasn't any gender conversation at all
Yeah.
going on.
No,
um
2001, like,
yeah, yeah,
wow,
I mean, that was
different
just,
time.
yeah, totally. So you're just like, okay, well, this is what I'm being asked to do, and and I want to like make it, I want to do like I
New
want to
York.
be a star. And so it was just, that's what I agreed to, basically. So I'm just going to do my hair as I talk about this very
Yeah, because
traumatic moment in my life.
seriously, 'cause it was like what you had said when we chatted earlier was kind of like about how, yeah, there's this idea that you go to New York and it's just like
Yeah,
you really get to like be yourself and all of this. It's like this accepting place, and to have that's like so like I hadn't really thought about that, especially like as
yeah,
an actor, that's like would be like a common experience.
yeah. And
For
I
a lot of
think,
people.
it's, it, I have to say, like, in some ways it was super freeing, and it still
Mhm.
is, and it was, I was able to really think about and care about the things that were important to me. And, I felt like I'd found my people, and all that stuff here. So
Mhm.
there is that, but, and it wasn't only, it wasn't specific to like gay people, or, I'm
Mhm.
not even going to say trans people because there weren't any, but like, you know, I, I think, like, it's an incredibly racist, industry, and that, like the model of theater school, and even like just regionalisms, taking like, sort of very specific dialects out of people's um expression and stuff. And
Mhm.
so it really is this, and again, like, I think it's changed now. Like, if it
Yeah.
hasn't, then that would be really disappointing, because whatever. But but yeah, I think that. So it was, it was a business. They were like really,
Yeah.
and also in the meantime, I did get like a really great skill set,
Right.
so I was able to kind of like get good, so
So like, what happened when you finished school? Like, how did
yeah.
you, were you like auditioning and like, how did you find like where your place was like in the city and in the biz?
Yeah, so like so I
Where did you
auditioned.
live? Sorry, I have to stop and go back. Where did you live when you first got there? Just curious.
Ooh, my first apartment was on 9th Street between 1st and A, 417 East Ninth Street, and it was amazing. And that's when the East Village was still like not like, I don't know if I can swear on here, but like it wasn't like a shit show. So
Yeah.
I just, yeah, it was like now it's like kind of it's changed. Let's just say that. Um, but yeah, it was so amazing. It was like the dream, because I'd grown up watching Madonna and like learning about the Mud Club and Anna Sui and RuPaul and all these people who were like running around the East Village, and then I was doing it too,
So
and I thought that that kind of thing that I was like wishing for was kind of over, but so I just was like auditioning, but with this kind of weird, like, I don't know, like it was like this kind of weird trying to have this persona as like a young Johnny Depp, which was like completely by design, with like
right.
agents and stuff. And so that so I was like doing that for a couple of years, and it wasn't working because it was totally like fake. And mm, and then I just kind of like stumbled into this downtown cabaret performance nightlife world, and that is when it really felt as though there was like an avalanche or like a flood of expression and creativity and artistry that was just like coming out of me, and then it kind of like went from there,
So what
like.
kind of stuff were you doing? Like, was it a venue or was it just like a group of people in different places?
Yeah, it was like a bunch of venues, a group of people, like kind of an underground world
Scene.
of, yeah, it was a scene,
Or
a
the real
scene.
scene.
Yeah. And so, and there were a whole lot of like people from previous, decades who were still there doing those things. And so, it was like an art scene basically. And it was really, but it was super queer, super, a lot of like cabaret stuff, and then like a lot of like little like venues that were just like having people would have nights. So it was, maybe one might say actually that it was a community. So that was that was great. And at that time it was like the queer community, and it was small. It was super small. And I talk about this a lot, that like there's that was like maybe like 2009, 10, that and there was no like RuPaul's Drag Race, there was nothing. So anybody who was like kind of doing any type of performance that was like gender bending or fluiditing was like kind of doing it against society in this way. And I found, and then what's happened since then is it's become like an avenue to fame, and so, and I think it's great. I think that's wonderful, but it was just a different kind of thing. There was more, there was more. I don't know, it felt like more fun in a way, like we were just like making things, and because we felt like it, not because we thought like it was going to get us somewhere, like
Yeah,
it
because
was,
in your mind you're like it wasn't going
no,
to,
it
so you
didn't,
could
it
just
didn't.
be like very free.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
so there's
exactly.
no one that you had to like impress with it particularly.
not
Except your
at all.
peers.
Or the audience, just the audience, you know? So,
Yeah, like and like little venues and stuff like that.
yeah, so
And
great.
were you also like producing your own stuff at that time, or did that come a bit later?
Yeah, I mean, so what I had been doing, it started off like I would call them, because of my theater background, I guess, I would call them one acts. So it'd be like a 5 minute performance in a night of like 10 people or something. And then I started thinking like,
And what was the performance? Like, what would you do?
I would always do like a spoken word thing and a song. And so usually it was like a crazy, like a pop song, like a cover, but like with a
Mhm.
different meaning. You know, it's like what like Tori Amos did Toxic, you know, and so like something like that. And like I used to do what is that song? Single Ladies, Beyonce Single Ladies, but like super like slowed down and just like stripped down and like super heart filled. And I would always like cry when I would sing it, you know. And then like some kind of poem spoken word thing that I'd written. So that then sort of translated into doing more like full length shows um and like kind of writing these abstract plays that were I think kind of cool. I would also like then I started doing a Christmas show every year that was like kind of a farce or like a satire rather of like the old Judy Garland Christmas specials and stuff, and which are like, you know, seared into my brain. And yeah, and so it was just like it would always be sort of this like I would be playing this like Hollywood star who's like being crazy and controlling and manic and you know basically like myself, and then like have all the you know in this family, and then it's like everything blows up and then I learn a lesson. So I was doing that for a while, and it just kind of and you know it turned into like it just sort of like turned back into acting, and then doing like these I started working with Big Art Group, who I'm going to the Venice Biennale with next week. And
Tell us about Big Art Group.
yeah, so Big Art Group is a theatrical troupe, a group, and headed by Caden Manson and Gemma Nelson, and they are amazing. So Gemma writes the plays, and then Caden directs them, and they do this thing where actually their website is pretty phenomenal. I think it's just bigartgroup.com, and they so you know you're basically like doing a play, and then there's all these cameras all over the stage,
Mhm.
and then those that feed is being projected back onto these huge screens that are all over the stage. So
Yeah, I took a look at the one that you're doing.
yeah,
It's looks cool.
yeah, so it's an interesting thing because it's sort of like you are doing a play, like acting for film and television is obviously like very different. Everyone said it a
Mhm.
million times, everyone knows that. But like the thing is that in this instance, you're kind of doing both, and
Mhm.
and it's cool. I don't know.
Like these
It's a
close-ups of the face and
yeah,
things
yeah. It's
like
like a
that.
close up of your face, but also a big ass audience sitting there, like
Yeah.
looking at that. So, yeah. So, and they're just like this amazing group. And we did this show 10 years ago and here in New York. And then I guess people from the Biennale, you know, invited it to come there.
That's so
So,
wow.
yeah. Yeah. It's
It's
a
really
great
cool
thing.
to hear that just because it makes me think about just how like everything that we do as artists, kind of like you don't know who's still seeing it.
Yeah.
Because that you did that show when
10 years.
2012.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe it was
Yeah, and then
then. Yeah.
they reached out,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. They're like, we're now ready for this piece of art.
Yeah. Totally.
To-
Totally. And I think
yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, it's true, especially like, I don't know. I don't know what this world is. It's everything's going crazy, whatever, right? But like, even beyond that, like to kind of feel as though, you know, you're like putting stuff out and, you know, into the universe, even like forget about like industries or I don't know, like casting directors or producers or anything, but it's like, it's really like you think you try to put stuff out into the universe and then you're like, well, I don't know, like, and so much of what I do is that, you know, and sort of making friends with that and like really just trusting and feeling like, you know, I think I said the like when we were talking the other day, like this, like just having this blind confidence or belief. It's not even confidence. It's like this blind belief, even when like maybe for a decade it was like not the smartest move, you know, or like it wouldn't from the outside look like the smartest move. Like, what's the return? There isn't any. What? Stop, you know. But I think, you know, there's like we're kind of required to not do that, you know.
It also like depends on your motivation for like whatever it is you're doing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like if it's like, you know, for like commercial success or for like personal satisfaction. And then it's like, oh, is it worth doing if it's just because like I enjoy doing it? Like, does that count? Like nobody else likes it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. These are the questions. I mean, I feel like I'm always asking myself, like, what is actually the point of this? You know, like, what is the point of making my own work? What is the point of like, I don't know, like, you know, making films, making television, you know, like, and I think like, you know, I always arrive at an answer. It's oftentimes different, you know, like this, like right now, this answer is different than it was 10 years ago, you know. It's like after the last few years that we've been through, it's you know, or that we're going through still. It's like, you know, it means something different. And I think asking those questions is what keeps us, or what I should speak for myself, it keeps me in the game, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So you also like became involved with a venue. You sort of started a project of your own, I'm assuming with a community. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I so I think it was in 2011. I started with a friend of mine, this place called The Spectrum in Brooklyn, and it was like a queer community performance rehearsal, whatever you could imagine space. And we threw parties and it got some attention. The parties got some attention, and then they kind of like, it kind of blew up, and that was, and it was a time when, you know, sort of these museums and institutions were like considering nightlife to be an artistic practice, and I think still some people consider that, and but we were, you know, there was like art parties, and it was just like this thing that, I mean, everyone felt like they were doing something new, but you know, you're probably never, you never are really, but like, you know, it's like, yeah, so we had these, it was actually a really great space, and we kind of like, we just were bopping around and having it as like a place for people to come and make work and do their things. And it still exists in a different venue, in a different arena. But yeah, it was quite a moment.
How long were you doing that?
A couple of years, 2 years, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, were you able to like create a lot of new work, and like, were you just, what was it like, or was it like,
yeah,
you know, just like facilitating like all this creativity?
So I think it felt like it was both, you know. It was a time when I was making a lot of work, and I was, you know, able to use it as a studio. And that was the first time that I really had a studio space where I lived, because we lived above it. And
What you
it
doing?
was, yeah. So it was like we had this building that was, there's 3 stories and 2 apartments on top, and then that space. And so, yeah, we did that. And
My sister just wrote me. She
what'd you say?
said, she said, Nicola Gorham looking good.
Wait, who is that?
My sister. The text was
Oh,
like, dot, dot. I was like,
oh.
agreed, agreed.
Thank you.
You're
Hey, girl.
my Anyway, go on, go on. Sorry, I just had to.
Oh, I don't. What was I speaking? I don't
I
know.
just feel like you describing all of these like the stuff you've done really is like the sort of like stereotype like somebody looking from the outside is like, wow, you really like live this sort of like New York artist life. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like an old building in Brooklyn and we just opened this like avant-garde like our
Yeah.
parties like art like
Yeah.
yeah sort of space and like experimenting with like I don't know, it's great.
Totally. I mean, that
And you're
was what
like
was.
amazing, you did it all.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's funny because those were the things that were like inspiring or influencing us, like those classic tales, those classic New York stories and stuff, or like whatever, you know, whatever
Yeah,
world we imagined it to be from the outside, and so, you find yourself in it and you're like, oh, a lot of it does not feel how you would think or
yeah,
how what you would dream of, but like,
the
there are
glamour.
these moments where it does. Yeah. And yeah, totally. I mean, like having no money and like being cold and not being able to eat is actually not
Mhm.
glamorous. I can attest to, but other things are, walking down the
Mhm.
street or like I used to go to the Met like all the time and just sit in front of this Jackson Pollock painting and just like learn about like this my soul, and that
Mhm.
was awesome, it was
Totally. It's
inspiring.
also like the other thing that I think is interesting is like when I think about like, you watch like an old documentary or like whatever, like of these like heyday of New York. And also like thinking about all the changes that like were happening
Yeah,
at those times. And like it's like I look back at like the 60s and the 70s and like oh like the huge like social shifts and like the war and all of this stuff and you're like wow what a time to like be alive. But
yeah,
then I was just thinking about like now and it's like we're going through like crazy like social changes
yeah,
like very quickly in the last like few years, last like 5 to 10 years, and just like the pandemic and like it's just like we're also like living through a time now. Like I feel like when we look back in history, if like there's still like a human race in like 100 years, this will also be like a decade that was like you know, and to be involved in that like creating that kind of community in the big city is pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. It feels it's hard, it's always hard to like see
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're doing as something like what you're doing in the present moment is
yeah,
seeing that
yeah.
it's like gonna have any effect at all. But it is true that like it is a very potent time, like
Mhm.
however you look at it. So
And then so like I actually saw you, as I've already told you, in is it called High Maintenance?
oh yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah,
saw you in an HBO show. Like my boyfriend was just watching TV, and then there you were playing a
yeah,
character, playing like it was like a trans woman, no?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like just a bitch.
Um,
A
but anyway, it's
sociopath
just like
actually was
very
what the writer said.
fun, very fun character. But it's also like you're back in like mainstream
Mhm.
doing like a very like big commercial show. So like have you
Yeah.
sort of been getting back into that world or were you just like always auditioning and now there's like parts where people are like, yeah, you.
Yeah, I feel like I had sort of it's hard to say. I mean, I would kind of have like managers and stuff along the way,
Mhm.
but it wasn't my focus. And then
Yeah.
like 5 years ago, or well, I don't know how many years after the last couple. It's like maybe like 7 or 10. I don't know, but like quite a few years before the pandemic began, I had I had sort of made a decision to like start transitioning and start really going back into like actor world and as we've said, kind of leading up to this is that it is a completely different world, and it is a completely the opportunities are so much more, and I just feel like, yeah, so then I just started like really being able to get it in that way again. And I think it really is just about authenticity. I went to the Queer as Folk premiere, and it was the other night, and they had a panel afterward, and I've got a friend in it, and it was so like everyone was just speaking from such a like authentic queer perspective that even in the original Queer as Folk they weren't exactly doing. So it was really it's just a completely different time. I mean, in this country we're still like it's completely different, and there's a still a very heavy pushback on it, and there's a lot of course violence and laws and stuff that are being perpetrated against us, and primarily people of color. But like I think it's a reaction to, in part it's a reaction to like the uplifting of queer and Black people. So yeah.
But yeah, it does feel like, I mean, yeah, you're living in a place. I mean, it's a different world in like small town America, or like outside of North America or whatever. Like it depends where you are and like what your world is.
Yeah,
I don't know.
totally.
Cool to see on TV.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also like what you were saying, because we're speaking about acting school before and about like acting now, what you were saying when we spoke earlier, just about like, even though you're an actor like playing a role, it isn't you. It's like you're like clay is your humanity. That was like something you said. I was like, yeah, exactly. It's still you.
Totally. Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because I think it's a really fine line, because you can't play a character without it being, you. But at the same time, it's so like, it really is the voice and the words of another person, unless you've written it yourself, of course. But like, so it's such a fine line, because I always think of like, you asked me like the character that I was playing on High Maintenance, like, was that a trans woman? And it's like everything I play is a trans woman, whether it's written to be or not, because that's like how I find my in. When I was like being like, oh, it's a straight dude, now I'm gonna like put on a straight dude like persona, it just it wasn't good acting. It just wasn't good. So yeah, I really do feel like the key is authenticity and heart and humanity, and like studying those things and understanding what they mean to you personally. And I think that's for any artist. So
Are you still study? Like, I feel like, is that something that actors just like do forever? I feel like it is for dance.
Yeah.
Definitely, it never ends. And I feel like that's also true.
Totally.
It's like, you never arrive.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's like when you're in class, it is that thing of like, you have the freedom to explore, like I was saying, that we were doing, making work like 10, 15 years ago. It was like the freedom to explore without it really mattering, and that's, I think, what class does. When you're on set or something, it's like there's a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of like pressure that maybe we put on ourselves. But like, I think, when you're in class, it's like you're only like really like competing with yourself and stuff. So
Are you still performing in like little venues and doing the cabaret sort of stuff? Like if people were in New
Hmm.
York, would they be able to possibly see you do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, not for the next couple months,
No.
but yeah, like there's like Joe's Pub stuff, which is Joe's Pub is like like an institution of
I
a
was thinking
legendary
like an
institution.
institution.
Yeah. I mean, it's like in the best possible way. It's really
Yeah.
that place is just magical. But yeah, I'm doing like some stuff like that too, and so it's always on my Instagram, so people can
Get on the
see
gram.
that.
So and you're going to Venice next week.
I am, well, yeah, we're kind of going all over Italy, but
Italy.
yeah,
Right.
Venice is the main destination.
So that's wonderful. You've never been to Italy?
I have never been to Italy. No.
Oh, it's gonna blow your mind. You're gonna have the best time. And
Yeah,
to
that's
be
what
able
everyone
to
keeps
see a
saying.
place like performing and touring is so wonderful,
Yeah,
really. Because you're gonna be there with like all your buds.
I'm really really
So
excited.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, apparently it's gonna be hot, but
Oh, nice. So where can people find you if they want to like follow your work and all that good stuff?
yeah, my Instagram is pretty much the best place. Miss Nicola Gorham, period. That's it. Yeah, full stop, not period. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much like the way things go these days. You know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess people can't like you'd have to be at the Venice Biennale to check that out.
I think so. I don't think it's like going to be
It's
streaming
not
or
like a
something.
line themed like
I don't think so, but I
okay.
could be
Well,
wrong.
um, it's so awesome to talk to you and just to like hear about your work and hear about your life. This is all like a fun little catch up for
I
us.
know, right? I'm like, I hope this was interesting to people. We're just like, KITSI, let's go. That's the Kitsilano
I know. I was
Secondary
like, can you
School.
do the cheer? I just want to say, like, have you been by? Like, you haven't been back to the school or like the city in a few years, right? To Vancouver.
No, but I have definitely seen the renovations of the school.
Our school's completely different. It's crazy.
Our
I'm actually,
entire school, our entire old school is now the gym. Did you know
yeah.
that? Yeah. So
Really?
that's
No, I didn't know that.
yeah. It's like that entire building is like the gym.
I know. I was in Vancouver last week, and I was like, could I just go into the high school? Like, do they allow that? Are adults
No, they
just
yell at
not?
you. I went with my father a couple of years ago, and they yelled at us and told us to
Yeah.
leave. And I was like, "This is the exact energy you are all displaying so many moons ago."
You're like
That's true.
nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
Um,
But
well, Nicola, thank you so much for being with us here today. Really, it's been
thank
so
you.
wonderful like, to hear about your
Absolutely.
journey, about like all of your art and everything.
Yeah. Thank you.
And everybody follow Nicola and check out her work
Hmm.
and come back next week. We'll have another wonderful guest from somewhere. I'm not sure if it's Israel or we're doing International Month. So
Yeah.
I can't recall off the top of my head who it is, but we'll be back next month.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And have a
you.
wonderful day in the Big Apple and in Italy. I'm sure it's going to be
Thank you.
amazing.
Thanks. Yeah.
Bye.
And enjoy the beauty and the freedom of Canada.
Yes, I will. Every day.
Yeah. Yeah. All
Have a
right.
good one.
Mwah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.